Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. How amazing was this episode? But before I get into my review, if you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. I summarize and review the latest by Yanlış and send you a couple more episodes. Say what I like, what I didn't like, what I think might happen next, what I noticed. If you like these kinds of videos, subscribe to my channel and we will meet on a weekly basis. Before I get into the amazing Ezgi and Özgür storyline, let's talk a little bit about the others. First we have Cansu and Levent. Cansu is very concerned about Ezgi, why she left for Bursa, but I'm going to talk about that later. But she doesn't know what really happened and what triggered Ezgi to be so angry with them. Levent, on the other hand, knows the truth, knows what happened between Özgür and Serdar, but hides it from Cansu. Even when Cansu tries to go to Serdar, he's like, oh, don't do this, blah blah blah, and he keeps coughing whenever Cansu asks him if he hides something, or he will tell her if he knows something, and he's like, yeah, of course I don't hide anything from you. Like this reaction he has when he's stressed, when he's hiding something. But before he meets up with Cansu, he actually talks to Serdar, tells him everything that happened, that Ezgi actually left for Bursa and also that she quit her job. Of course Serdar is like very intrigued and thank you for the information, and I'm like, Levent, why did you have to say that? Anyways, then we have Zeynep calling Levent, wanting to go to a swimming pool. He accepts, but Cansu is like, are you serious? I have a phobia. I don't like to swim. I don't know how to swim. I'm scared of swimming. And he's like, how can you be like that? Blah, blah, blah. So he's teaching her how to swim. They go to her pool and he's like, how weird are you that you bought an apartment with a pool, but you have a phobia of water and pools? He didn't understand it. I myself don't really understand how she can be like that, but anyways, he tries to explain everything, all the different styles of swimming, and tries to get her into the water, but she's way too scared. And then when she's like, oh my god, I really want to know what Deniz and Ozan are talking about, because Deniz and Ozan actually met up to talk about Ezgi and Özgür, but I'm going to talk about that later. So Levent tries to change the topic again, and that's when it clicks for Cansu, and she's like, you're hiding something, you know something that I don't know. Why would you keep changing the subject when I start talking about the surprise birthday party? And then the funniest thing was when Levent was running away from Cansu, but he was still in the pool, so he couldn't really move that fast and that far. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to confess. So he tells her everything that happened between Serdar and Özgür. So the day comes, Cansu has to go swimming with Zeynep and Levent. She tries to stay away from the water. Zeynep is loving life, swimming around. Levent having the best time of his life, being with his daughter but also with Cansu. But then he leaves to get some drinks and Zeynep fakes drowning. So Cansu is like, oh my god, she's panicking. But this kind of motherly instinct kicks in. She wants to save Zeynep. She doesn't want anything to happen to Zeynep, so she tries to swim, tries to get to her, tries to save her, but Zeynep just starts laughing. Then Levent comes. He's very confused but also impressed that Cansu actually wanted to rescue his daughter. But then when Cansu is talking with Zeynep, Zeynep kind of says, well, I'm really happy that you accepted my conditions to be with my father, blah blah blah, and Cansu doesn't really understand it. So she's like, well, in order for me to accept your relationship with my father, the condition was that he wouldn't marry you and you wouldn't get children together. And I'm like, oh my god, what? Why? Like, this is the only thing that Cansu actually wants. So she gets kind of angry with Levent, but he kind of weasels himself out of it. As always, he finds an explanation, being like, oh, she's just a kid, blah blah blah, don't believe her, she will forget it. And I'm like, no, she won't. Like, this will be quite a big problem in the future. What if Cansu will actually get pregnant? Oh my god, like, Levent will lose it. What will he do with Zeynep? But anyways, moving on to Deniz and Ozan. The main thing that happened with them is them meeting up, talking about Ezgi and Özgür, kind of like telling the other person, like Ozan telling Özgür's side and Deniz telling Ezgi's side, and that's how they get the whole story, and that's how they understand, okay, what went wrong, why everybody reacted the way they reacted. Because before Ozan actually met up with Deniz was there with Cansu because she was trying to tell Ozan this whole thing, but But that's when Jansu kind of understood why Ezgi reacted the way she reacted, because Jansu was like, well, we wanted Ezgi to have an amazing man, we wanted to help her, blah blah blah, why did she react that way? But Dennis is like, well, we never really asked her what she wanted. We saw Serdar being rich, handsome, having a great job, but we didn't really ask Ezgi how she really feels about him. So then Jansu was like, well, with Özgür she would be unhappy, but Dennis is like, what if she would have been really happy? So then it kind of clicks for Jansu. Anyways, back to Dennis and Ozan. They start talking, they want to tell Özgür this whole story, like all the information they have now. But while they are there, a filming crew arrives, so Dennis and Ozan can't really get away. Then they have some issues with extras, so they put Dennis and Ozan as extras, but then the director says they need to be like lovers. Ozan should take Dennis' hand and they should look at each other, and it was so amazing. Like this moment, it was so romantic, so cute, them being so close together. I don't think that they've ever been this close together, and it was just like, I was so excited. Anyways, Ozan has a talk with Özgür. Özgür is like, well, please don't tell them or Ezgi that I actually planned this whole surprise birthday party for her and that I actually had a birthday present for her, because it would be embarrassing. And now to the amazing Ezgi and Özgür storyline. So we see Özgür being at a party or at a club, but he's not really enjoying it. Like in the beginning, he was the life of the party. He enjoyed himself. He was like constantly partying, being here and there, but now he did a 180 and is just in his head not liking it. Oh no, before that, Ozan actually asks him how was the surprise, and Özgür is like, there's no surprise, just don't ask, it's done, it's over. And Ozan is kind of confused. Then we also see Ezgi going to that special place, looking around, being really sad, thinking back to the times she was there with Özgür. And then when she walks away, she finds this handwritten card, and there's like something along the lines of, you're the most beautiful person I know, you are everything I've ever wished for and more, something like that. And then happy birthday Sevgilim. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my god, he called her Sevgilim, because it was actually the first time him calling her that and him admitting that, kind of. So I was like, oh god, like this must have been so hurtful. Then we actually see Özgür telling the planner to get everything away. Then we see Ünal, Nevin, Jansu and Deniz trying to get a hold of Ezgi, but she's not picking up. Nevin is getting really concerned, but Ezgi appears. She gets really angry with all of them. How could they do that, especially with Jansu and Deniz? Didn't they know what she liked, blah blah blah. So she got really angry, and they really deserved it. So the only one that was kind of left out of her anger and kind of being neutral was Ünal. So she asked him to take her back to Bursa. Nevin was kind of confused why this sudden change, and when she's outside on the terrace, not really making sense of Ezgi's behavior, because she was like, well, what did we do wrong, blah blah blah, why is she so angry, I don't understand. I'm like, oh my god, woman, she wanted Özgür there, not Serdar. Like, why don't you understand that? But Sevim and Fitnat actually see Nevin there. They go because they also can't get hold of Özgür. They're also concerned. They try to ask Nevin if Özgür is actually with Ezgi, because Sevim is like, oh my god, of course he's not picking up because he's celebrating that girl's birthday. And Nevin gets really angry, calls them snakes. Özgür is not with Ezgi, blah blah blah. And Ezgi actually hears this whole fight, and then she kind of breaks them up and is like, I quit my job, I'm not with Özgür, I'm moving out, so please leave my family alone. Sevim is really surprised, and in that moment she was kind of like nicer. Like in this episode, she was back to being the nice mother, not the snake mother that she was in the past episode. So Fitnat was the only one still being angry, still being a snake, still being a biatch. Anyways, Özgür comes, Sevin and Fitnat are relieved, and Fitnat congratulates him that Ezgi quit her job, and Sevim is like, did you celebrate with Ezgi, because we heard it? And Özgür is like, no. And then Fitnat is like, of course not, you saw that she was two-timing you, she was also with that doctor and you caught them, blah blah blah. Like her drama brain moving at lightning speed. And then his looks, like if looks could kill, Fitnat would have been dead instantly, like this hatred. Oh my god. When Özgür goes away, Sevim is kind of seeing that Özgür is not feeling right. Özgür is different. Özgür is sad. So she kind of gets concerned because the next day she tells him that they're going back to Göçke, and Fitnat is like, well, of course, because we hit our target. And I was like, oh my god, woman, just shut up. Then we see Ezgi looking through her phone, seeing all those missed calls, but none of them is Özgür's, and also looking if he messaged her. There's also the last message was when he asked her to come on the terrace. So of course she feels really hurt. Then we see Özgür being really angry, going to Tolga, and that's when we really know how he looks, that he's Özgür's cousin, and Özgür doesn't really acknowledge him, like not really wanting to make small talk, because Tolga was actually watching the CCTV footage of the fight between Özgür and Serdar while eating KFC, and Özgür was really angry and even asked him, what's your problem with me? Why don't you leave me alone? Blah blah blah. Why did you interfere with the sale? Now we know that Tolga is kind of jealous of Özgür, but we still don't know what really happened between them. When I saw Tolga the first time, I was like, I know him from somewhere, and then it clicked for me. I know him from Medcezir, and even in that series he was the villain. He was the a-hole of the series. I think he was an old friend of Yaman's. Anyways, Tolga keeps taunting him, and then Özgür loses it, takes the baseball bat from Tolga, smashes everything around him. But the only thing that Tolga really cares about is that fish tank. But then Özgür is like, do you really not know me? I would never hurt a living being. But he was livid. Like, I don't think we've ever seen Özgür that angry. Then we see Ezgi taking a walk, listening to music. Their song, like Ezgi and Özgür's song, comes on. She remembers their time. Özgür is also listening to the same song, also remembering Ezgi. But then both of them are turning it off. Ezgi goes further down the road, whatever, through the woods. And then she ends up back at the restaurant. And Nevin wants to have a talk with her because she sees that Ezgi is different. Sees that Ezgi is sad kind of, but she doesn't really understand why. So Ezgi doesn't really want to open up to her, and I'm like, well, of course she doesn't want to open up to you because of what you did, because a mother should actually know what her child wants, but you did the complete opposite. Anyways, Ezgi gets really angry. It's like, why do you keep asking me? You wanted me to quit, I quit. You wanted me to move, I moved. You wanted me to get away from Özgür, I did it. What else do you want? Then we have Özgür telling the rest of the team, like Emre, Gizem and Ozan, that Ezgi actually quit her job, that she's not coming back. Gizem is the happiest person ever. Like, she starts laughing, like happy laughing, but then kind of hides it with her being in shock, and oh my god, I want to cry. And I'm like, oh my god, how fake can you be? Anyways, Özgür goes to talk to Ozan about this whole other restaurant, their problems. Like, now he kind of has money problems. He put La Gabia for mortgage, or I don't know what it's called in English. I think, like in German it's hypothek, but I think it's mortgage. I think it's when you can't pay your debts, the bank gets the whole house, or in this case the whole restaurant, and that way it gets paid and then they sell it to somebody else. Anyways, Ozan is really shocked. Why would Özgür do something like that? Because Özgür said, well, we need a loan, so that's the only way, and I don't want you to put more money in because you already put all your savings in, blah blah blah. And Emre was actually eavesdropping when he heard that a mortgage was put on La Gabia. He was so shocked, even barged in, was like, how could you do that, blah blah blah. It was really funny. Then we see Tolga calling Serdar and wanting to meet up, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is not going to end well for Ezgi and Özgür. Then we see this whole montage of Ezgi and Özgür suffering, missing each other, blah blah blah, trying to get over each other, but I felt really bad for both of them. Then Serdar brings Yeşim also to meet Tolga, and after their meeting, Yeşim is really impressed by Tolga, and then Serdar is like, well, let's start our plan, and he calls Nevin and asks her how he can get hold of Ezgi because she's not picking up. Nevin for the first time is like, well, I'm not interfering, and I'm like, hallelujah, thank you so much that you're not interfering. But then he's like, well, I really want to apologize to Ezgi for everything that happened, blah blah blah, and I really need your help. And then you only see her face, and I'm like, please don't do anything stupid. Then we see Özgür meeting up with the bank manager, telling him that he will open up the new restaurant. And the bank manager is like, well, I really like you, you know that you're my favorite client, blah blah blah, I will help you with the loan, but the only problem is your license. If you don't have the license, it will be difficult to get a loan. And Özgür is like, just tell them that I will open it anyways, be assured everything will be fine. After that, we see Tolga calling Ezgi, offering her job, just saying his name like Tolga but not his last name, and saying, well, I heard you did an amazing job in your last job, blah blah blah, we would really like to hire you. And Nevin is actually listening to her. So in order for her to get information about this whole phone call, Nevin actually makes Ezgi's favorite dish and tries to get information out of her, like bribing her. Then we have Cansu telling Özgür her side of the story, like Ezgi's side, and that's when it kind of clicks for Özgür. All the pieces are together and he's like, oh my god, what have I done? It's the biggest mistake. Like, you could really see his regret. And then he says, I have to go to Bursa and try to apologize and make things right. So he drives there, but while he's on his way, Serdar actually appears. Ezgi is not very happy to see him there, and then he's like, well, I want to apologize for the mistakes I made, and I have to confess, I really like you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm like, seriously? And Ezgi is like, you made a mistake, I will accept your apology on the one condition that there's nothing between us, there won't ever be anything between us, it's just friendship. And then Özgür arrives. He comes, Serdar sees him, fakes coughing, fakes choking, wants a glass of water, sends Ezgi away, and then he's like all smug and being like, what are you doing here? Özgür gets really frustrated, really angry. What is Serdar actually doing here? Ezgi sees Özgür, interferes because Özgür gets so angry, is about to punch Serdar once again. Ezgi is like, what are you doing here? Then Ünal and Nevin actually come. Ünal sends both Özgür and Serdar out. Serdar is not really trying to fight against it. Özgür, on the other hand, is trying to help Ünal with the bags, tries to explain himself, says he wants to talk to Ezgi. So you can really see that he wants to make things right. Serdar just was like, okay, bye. Ünal also tries to get Özgür away, but Özgür is very stubborn and stays there and keeps waving at Ezgi and is like, can we have 5 minutes? I really want to talk to you, blah blah blah. But Ezgi refuses. And then Özgür is like, well, I can be stubborn as well, and then just takes the chair out of his car, and I'm like, oh my god, what is this? Anyways, later Nevin sees him there with tea. He even offers some tea to her, and then she tells Ezgi that Özgür is still there wanting to talk to her, and you can really see Ezgi being like excited that he's still there, that he wants to talk to her. And then she's like, well, I will tell him to go away, don't worry, blah blah blah. So she really wants to talk with him to see what he has to say. The only ridiculous thing I think in this whole episode was when Özgür was trying to fish, and it was like cringy, and that's what I really didn't like. I mean, of course you can be funny, but this was just over the top. This was just like, no, it was just too much. Anyways, Ezgi is like, please go, you're disturbing us, please just go away. Özgür is like, no, I will stay here till you talk to me, even if it's the next morning. And then Ezgi is like, okay, talk. And then you can really see Özgür didn't really expect this answer, and is like, okay, wait, I have to gather my thoughts, what I wanted to say. And I'm like, oh my god, like seriously. Then he apologizes, says that he made a mistake, tells her his side of the story, and then she gets really angry with him, really frustrated. How could he think about her that way? How could he think that she would really do something like that? And there is this whole trust issue again, and that's also what we have from the trailer, where she says, well, if there's no trust, there's no love, and when there's no trust between us, of course there can't be love between us, so of course there's nothing nothing between us. And then she goes away and you can really see him trying to process it, regretting it. I mean, of course I felt bad for him, but at the same time I'm like, no, you really deserve it. You really deserve to suffer more. And what I've noticed is that in the trailer, when Ezgi walks away, he's actually looking after her, but this time he was just looking at the floor, like thinking kind of. And I'm like, okay, this is something I've noticed, and this is different to the trailer that we got. Then we have Ünal having a heart-to-heart with Ezgi, trying to give her advice, her being really desperate, and she doesn't really understand why her life turned out this way and why everybody is behaving like that towards her. And I felt really bad for her, but then Ünal said you have to first focus on yourself, be happy, and then everything will fall into place. That's when it clicks for Ezgi, and that's when she says, okay, I'm going to focus more on work. We see Özgür talking to Ozan, and what I already said, that he's begging Ozan not to tell Ezgi about this whole present thing. What I forgot to mention is that the gang, like Levent, Cansu, Deniz and Ozan, are meeting at Levent's place, and we kind of see that Levent has an OCD, is very like particular about his things, not liking the way Ozan walks on his carpet, the way he puts the mug on the table. It was just really hilarious to watch. Anyways, that's when Ozan kind of gets the idea to recreate this whole surprise party. Then we have Özgür wanting to call Ezgi but then not doing it, and Ezgi on the other hand waiting for him to call, and then Özgür kind of drops his phone in the pool, and I'm like, what? And you're not diving right after it? I wouldn't have had this reaction. If my phone would have fallen into a pool, I would have been like in there instantly. But he was like, Tesla, look. He was so relaxed, and I'm like, how can you be like that? The next day, Özgür tells Gizem to look for a replacement for Ezgi's position. And Gizem is like, well, I want to propose myself. And then he's like, no, I like you in the position you're in. Oh, what I forgot to say is that Haydar is kind of Fitnat and Sevim's spy. So Fitnat is like, well, I will give you information about Gizem if you promise us to keep us up to date if Ezgi is coming, what is happening around here, because you're our eyes and ears, and we trust you, and my phone is available 24/7, blah blah blah. And Haydar actually does that, so he really informs them if something happens and when Ezgi actually comes, because she goes to Istanbul for that job interview. She gets the job and then wants to meet up with Cansu because she says she wants to pick up a couple of things from the apartment. Haydar sees her, instantly messages Fitnat. Cansu and Deniz are already at the apartment waiting for Ezgi. They ask for her forgiveness, they apologize, they made a mistake, blah blah blah. Now they realize, and Ezgi of course forgives them because they missed each other. They talk about everything, and then Cansu and Deniz are like, come on, let's celebrate, we'll go out for dinner. And that's when they actually want to go to that special place. But before all of that happens, we have Özgür still wanting to know who's behind this whole problem he has with this second restaurant, and he goes to Tolga, but Tolga is actually at La Gavia looking around, being like, oh, I'm the new boss, blah blah blah, because Özgür put a mortgage on this and I will buy it from the bank, blah blah blah. Of course you can keep your job, I'm going to be your new boss, blah blah blah. Ozan is kind of, he wasn't really angry, he was quite calm, but you could really sense that he was getting angry and just sends Tolga away. And he was so weird, like this is a weird villain in my opinion. Before that, Haydar actually goes to La Gavia because he got the information where to find Gizem. He's so infatuated with her, tries to talk to her. Gizem doesn't really understand it. Gizem doesn't really believe Haydar that he knows Özgür. But anyways, Haydar actually witnesses all of this Tolga Ozan thing and actually records it, sends it to Fitnat, and Fitnat and Sevim get really concerned. And what I really didn't understand was when Tolga, at the beginning of the episode, he said that he's Fitnat's son. But then after that, like when Haydar sent the recording to Fitnat and they listened to it, Sevim says that her sister did this to Tolga. She made him this way. So I'm like, whose son is he? Can somebody please tell me if they understood anything, or if you're speaking Turkish, can you please tell me whose son is Tolga? Judging from Fitnat's reactions, I don't think that it's her son. We also have Tolga, Serdar and İrem meeting up, and Tolga telling İrem that Ezgi's first job is going to be something for Serdar's organization or something like that, and İrem is like, well, I can't wait to see Ezgi's face. So they already have a plan how to set Ezgi up. So we have Deniz, Ezgi and Cansu driving to that special place, but Ezgi doesn't know where they're actually going because she thinks to a restaurant. Ozan is actually having quite a hard time to get Özgür out of the restaurant, but finally they drive to the special place. What I thought was kind of weird to watch was Özgür sitting really weirdly in the car, and I was like, firstly, it's so weird to see Özgür sitting in the passenger seat. Second, I think that car was way too small for such a big man, or he was just sitting weirdly in that car. I don't know. They arrive. Özgür is kind of getting frustrated with Ozan. Why would he come here? But in that moment, Ezgi asks Levent, Deniz and Cansu who prepared this. Cansu was like, it wasn't us. And then Levent goes and Ezgi turns around, sees Özgür coming and them smiling together, and then she puts two and two together and asks him if he did this for her, and he says yes, but for your birthday. And then she takes the card out and says, well, then that means that it was yours. So it was so adorable, and then him saying basically what's on that card and them hugging, being all happy, and oh my god, this is so amazing. And that's the end. Thank god we got a trailer. So this trailer was, oh my god. So we have Ezgi and Özgür at some place. So it wasn't his door, it wasn't Cansu's door, it wasn't really a door in Bursa, I believe. So it was somewhere else. Them two being together in the same room, so sharing a room. Maybe it has something to do with the project that Ezgi has to do, and it's somewhere else, and Özgür just tagged along. Serdar knocks on the door, and then he's like, oh my god, I forgot, you're friends. And Özgür is like, no, I'm not her friend. And Ezgi's like, and then they kiss. I was like, what? And then you could really see Serdar's face getting from really smug to shocked. And then we have Ezgi telling Nevin that she's in a relationship with Özgür, and also Sevim finding out that Özgür is in a relationship with Ezgi. And then we have Serdar watching Ezgi and Özgür and saying, it's not over between us, Özgür. And I'm like, oh my god, what a creep. And then we see Ezgi and Özgür dancing in his living room at night, and they still have the same clothes on from the surprise, like how this episode ended. So I think they will end up at his apartment. She will sleep over. Maybe there's going to be more, we don't know, but it would be interesting. Maybe there's more like smooching around. I wouldn't mind that. Is there anything else? It would be really interesting to see what happens with Tolga, what plans he has, if he will reveal himself to Ezgi. But I think it will take Ezgi longer to find out who Tolga really is and what's between him and Özgür. But all in all, I think that's all. I really do hope that I didn't forget anything. If I did, I'm really sorry. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this episode. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Ring that bell to be notified whenever I post something, and I will see you next time. Bye!